Okay, welcome to my project, Media's Effects on Family, the media's effects on social, emotional, and family growth. My name is Irina Georgi. The goal of this website is to help parents to educate themselves and to learn how to help their children succeed in the real world and not just in the digital world. There is a need for this educational tool because children today are spending many hours in front of screens and less time interacting with others in person. According to Kirsting, 2016, he says, according to the latest research, the average 13-year-old spends 8 hours per day, 7 days a week, glued to a screen. Yes, this is problematic, but to every problem, there is a solution. Okay, so this is by Kirsty, 2016. So this is a problem in our society today, even among adults as well. Children today are spending many hours in front of screens and less time interacting with others in person. So unfortunately, these using social media too much can become like a drug addiction. So we have to be, as parents, need to be very careful and wise at what children are doing on social media and on their smartphones and tablets and so on. So if you click here, this will take you to the link of negative effects of social media, which we will discuss in depth further in the presentation. So this is the cover of Tom Kirsting's book, Disconnected, How to Reconnect With Digitally Distracted Kids. And here it takes you to Tom Kirsting's homepage, tomkirsting.com. So Kirsting's book, 2016, is the main source for this presentation. So this is what we will discuss in this presentation. We're going to discuss a lot of research and statistics. We're also going to discuss about how parent families can grow together, including this article that by Common Sense Media, which is called 5 Important Ways Moms Influence Kids. Another thing we're going to discuss here is to learn about the negative effects of social media, and this link will take you to the negative effects of social media. Next here we will talk about, we will introduce the topic briefly and talk about the learning objectives. So this website is to be used as an educational tool for parents to be aware of the dangerous effects that electronic devices such as TVs, tablets, smartphones, iPads, etc. can have on their children. I created this website in order to develop a community of practice, which is a community that is closer for people. For example, Moore's theory of transactional distance. So what is Moore's theory of transactional distance? Moore's theory 1997 states that distance education is not simply a geographic separation of learners and teachers, but more importantly, it is a pedagogical concept. On page 22, pedagogy refers to education, which, for example, teachers giving lessons to students, and so on. The transaction of distance education to 1997 means that it happens between teachers and learners, an environment having the special characteristic of separation of teachers and learners, and this is stated at page 22 of Moore's article in 1997. We're also going to discuss what is a professional learning network. A PLN is a network that connects others together and helps them to learn from each other. Examples of a professional learning network include Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. For example, teachers can create a professional learning network with teaching resources such as lessons, video clips, graphics, and other items that can help other teachers to utilize these tools in their classroom. The learning objectives of this presentation is that by the end of this course, parents will learn to be careful of their children's digital footprint, and this is important, especially according to Will Richardson. Parents need to know that what you post online about your children will remain online for the rest of their lives, so parents must be extremely careful. Parents will also learn that cyber safety is very important, internet safety is very, very important. Also, that there really is no undo button for anything posted online. Although you can, for example, delete something on Facebook, it is not necessarily deleted from the whole world because things remain online. Even if you do delete them, you can find them somewhere else online. Another thing parents will learn is how to navigate technology or social media correctly in a community of practice, and this is the theory by LaVey and Winger. A community of practice brings people closer together, and it's where people learn how to collaborate and communicate, and they can ask each other questions and participate together. So community of practice helps people to stay closer. Parents also should learn that they should not put their own personal information or their children's personal information anywhere online, and they should definitely not share it with the public. It is unnecessary to share personal information with the whole world. Privacy is very, very important, especially the privacy of young children as they're considered minors. And as we said, that anything you post online about your child will remain online for the rest of their lives. So really you have to think about what you are doing before you post anything about your child online, whether it is a picture, whether it is some information about them. You should really not even post your child's birthday online. Okay, let's go to the next page, which will take us to the research and statistics. And here we're going to go to Tom Kersting's website where he says these research and statistics. And these come directly from his book, Disconnected: How to Reconnect Our Digitally Distracted Kids. So he says that the dinner table and car rides are the two of the most important places in the world for parents because they present the perfect opportunities to talk to our children about their day, to see what's on their minds, and form connections with them. Kersting, 2016. He also says the average American family spends just 3.5 minutes in meaningful conversation per week. Which, if you think about that, that is a very limited amount of time in meaningful conversation. Unfortunately, today, parents spend a lot of time at work and doing shopping and doing a lot of things outside the house. And when they get home, some parents' children are already in bed. So, really, parents should invest and try to give their children as much time as they can. So, another research by Tom Kersting is that 2016 is that according to Peter Gray, a research professor at Boston College, students are having emotional crises and are seeking help for the minor problems of everyday life. Also, Kersting 2016 states that studies conducted with college students over the past few years have also found that smartphones are making the majority of them hallucinate. Another thing that we have to consider is that the quality of our children's lives is only as good as the relationship they have with their inner self. Meditation is an anchor, an integral part of this connection. Kersting, 2016. He also states that we have to get a handle on this out of control social media, smartphone, and device use. We have to remember that we as parents call the shots. Kersting, 2016. So here he means that parents are in charge of the kids, and they're the ones who call the shots. They're the ones who do the important stuff. They make the decisions for the child, for example. So they have to consider what kind of decisions they're making. Another thing that Kersting states is that in my private practice, I've received more referrals for middle school age children with major and anxiety disorders in last year than I have in the previous 16 years combined. Kersting, 2016. Also, he states that adolescents actually believe that the number of likes they have on a post is a reflection of who they are and a barometer of their self-worth. Kersting, 2016. Also, he states, because kids of this generation spend so much time using powerful electronic devices, their brains were changing, something known as neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections, leaving behind past traits and developing new ones. Could all of this screen time be changing kids' brains, thereby causing older children to display inattentiveness, lack of focus, and disorganizations, all symptoms of ADHD? Kersting, 2016. And if you don't know, ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which means the child cannot really sit and pay attention. He has a hard time to sit and to focus in class, and not just in class, but also perhaps at home during homework. And also another thing is disorganization. The child cannot organize their schedule. They cannot organize what they have to do. They cannot manage their time. So that's symptoms of ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Okay, the next thing we will go to is the negative effects of social media. So social media has many negative effects, as we discussed, and they can be similar to drug addiction. So I'd highly recommend that you would watch this video. This is social media negative effects isn't the same as drug addiction. And this video also discusses multitasking. So if parents are not careful, their children can get addicted to social media. This is very dangerous since being addicted to social media can mimic drug addiction. As a result, children can have serious withdrawal symptoms if parents take away their electronic devices, such as violence, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and anxiety and depression. So some negative effects of social media on youth and teenagers. Number one, a lack of interest in their studies and increased demand for money. Women are likely to be harassed Teenagers and youth can be influenced by wrong personalities, for example, such as getting in a group on Facebook of people who smoke or do drugs, and usually if you're in a group like that, you're very likely to imitate that person's bad behavior. Also, another thing is an increased cases of crimes. Other negative impacts of social media on youth and teenagers is that they can copy superheroes in real life. So if they watch violence on TV, it is very likely to copy this violence in real life. For example, the study by Albert Bandura, which was done many years ago in psychology, where children watched adults beat a Bobo doll. After that, children were asked to play with the doll. Many of the children imitated the adults' violent behavior and actually beat the Bobo doll. So that's an example of where they actually copied what they saw in real life. And this study was done many years ago by Albert Bandura. It's a very famous psychological studies. Another negative impact of social media on youth and teenagers is superiority and inferiority complex. They can also have a fearless attitude, so they can take risks, such as, for example, driving cars at very high rate of speed, and perhaps due to drinking alcohol and doing drugs. So this is very dangerous. Another thing is that social media can often lead to teenagers behaving rudely towards their parents and disrespecting them, which is not appropriate. Another thing is that they can, for example, not like or not interested to gather with the family because they are so focused on their social media. Another thing is that social media can lead teenagers and youth and also adults and parents to follow people who they don't know, to follow strangers, which can be very dangerous. Because, for example, a stranger can know the child's address and can come to their house. And unfortunately today, a lot of addresses are already public knowledge online. And as we mentioned also, social media can lead to a lack of interest in studying and to easily give up when there is a challenge because you're so focused on the social media. So that way you're not really focused on doing your homework and being prepared for school and in your academics, and also being prepared to do well in life and in careers and so on and so forth. Also, we have to know that addiction can happen to anyone. It can happen to parents, to teenagers, to adults, and to anyone. Also, an important thing to mention is that cyberbullying affects real lives. It's through social media. Sometimes people think that you can do whatever you want online. However, that is really not the case. You have to really think what you're doing before you post anything online and think whether this is appropriate or whether it would hurt another person. And bullying, people who bully each other, the bully themselves suffer, and also the victim also suffers. So you really have to consider what you are going to do before you post anything online. Here we are debating the dangers of social media. Okay. The next part here is the harmful effects of social media. I recommend you watch this video by Tom Kirsting about the harmful effects of social media. This is a study, this is an article which talks about what job skill is most lacking in the United States. And in this article, LinkedIn CEO Jeff Weiner has a surprising answer. Lacking communication skills is the #1 job skill missing in the U.S., and this is extremely true according to psychological research, especially with the newer generation being so addicted to electronic devices. Due to being addicted to these devices, there is a very high rate of young children diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, anxiety, and depression, according to Kirsting 2016. We don't have control over these devices. Instead, they control us, so we have to be very careful, especially with the younger generations where their brain is still developing. So some negative effects of social media include anxiety, depression, lower self-esteem, less self-control. It is a trigger for post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Another negative effect of social media is overeating, because a lot of times if you're watching a movie for an extended period of time, you're possibly eating popcorn or chips, and this can often lead to obesity. Another side effect or negative effect of social media is fear of missing out, FOMO, and this is very common, especially among teenagers, because, for example, they can see that their friends went to a party where they weren't invited, so they have a fear that they're missing something important. So this is called FOMO, or fear of missing out. Another negative effect of social media is called hive mind, which is irrational conformity to a group's thinking. Well, and this is really important because we cannot simply conform with what our peers and our friends are doing. We have to think for ourselves and consider what our values are before conforming and doing what everybody else is doing, or going with the flow. Some examples of well-known social media networks include Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Pinterest, Instagram, Tumblr, and Snapchat. Okay, so the media's effects on social growth. Negative effects of social media for a teenager. Social media is used as linked to increased rates of anxiety and depression. Instagram and Snapchat are considered the worst apps. So all adults, teachers, parents, and all adults need to teach students that social media can and should be utilized as a tool for good instead of posting something really negative about your friend. Really consider how it would make them